Yes. Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Pretty all right.
Okay, so we mess up a little bit the flow of conference. We're gonna have a interview, no presentation, but let's ponder a bit about artificial intelligence. If my start of question is, how will artificial intelligence accommodate the living world and other life forms in the context of what we heard today in the morning?
Go ahead.
Well, I should say by way of introduction that I'm here as a visiting professor at the Czech Technical University
yes.
in the Artificial Intelligence Lab. And I think it's worth pointing out for all the Czechs in the audience that this country really has some pretty profoundly good brains in this space. We had in our lab at the Czech Technical University, they had two cover stories in Science on artificial intelligence. So there's a strong tradition here to build on. I think both TOMÁŠ and I, from different perspectives, are really interested in kind of really delving deeper into what artificial intelligence might evolve into. I think the first essential point is to understand artificial intelligence in biological terms. So Max Tegmark at MIT has this theory that AI, and he's an evolutionary biologist, and he has this theory that artificial intelligence is actually life 3.0. So life 1.0 is most life on the planet, bacterial life and birds and trees and so on. Both the hardware and the software are baked in, and only Darwinian evolution will affect that. Life 2.0 is us as a species, so our hardware is more or less baked in. I mean, TOMÁŠ could get some heart surgery and he can live a little bit longer, but essentially you are what you are. But life 3.0 is artificial intelligence. That's where the physical, biological form and the software can both be modified. So if we take a 20, 30-year view of artificial intelligence, we're really talking about an entirely new species coming onto the planet. And whether that is transhumanist, whether humans ourselves merge with this technology, or whether this other emergent artificial intelligence takes over, it's going to be the most profound shift which will make the Industrial Revolution seem rather small.
So how the new species will look like then?
Well, it's a species that probably won't be biological, and you can already see it today. If I ask you the question whether the internet is an organization or an organism, you'd probably maybe, or I'm inclining more towards the organism question. It sort of has a logic of its own. It has a life of its own. And you can even see that on the brain scan. I was just having a debate with the German professor Spitzer, who wrote this book about digital dementia. And it's actually quite scary convincing how we are, in a way, already leaving the biological shell, so to speak, and there are more neuro parties happening online rather than in between the two of your ears made out of skin. So this, nobody ever said that a biological form of existence will be the final one. So it's also, to me, it's a fun way to look at it, because a computer program, I read it as the most advanced and most exact and maybe even most useful form of a myth. A computer program is something that doesn't exist in the real world. And these entities that are being born and that are being created in this digital habitat are also sort of a non-existing, different dimensional spectral beings. So I think there's going to be a lot of things that we can learn from theology. Will there be one God? Will there be one AI that will be governing all other gods, other AIs? Or will we rather behave like the Greek pantheon, different AIs fighting wars with each other and representing different wills of mankind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very important question, because if we think about the artificial intelligence which is being evolved in European universities and artificial intelligence being involved by the Chinese state, clearly they're going to have different socio-economic, cultural, and there's different storytelling which goes into it. And so we're actually going to end up probably with a world with 6 or 7 macro AIs which will represent the life perspective of those organizations.
We will also probably lose our top position in the food chain. This took us 180,000 years for our form of intelligence, different from, I don't know, wolves intelligent or plant intelligent, to evolve at the top of the food chain. This position will now be most likely threatened. How will human beings behave when they're not limited by anything? Space, time, mortality, scarcity. That's another thing that I think we can sort of learn from theology, because that's the only other element where you see unlimited beings behaving. And the behavior is, even within Christian religion, the idea of God sort of being sometimes malicious, sometimes being very jealous. So even an unlimited personality or entity is actually quite an interesting thing to study. Yeah, and yeah, most likely we will evolve into a spiritual form. It's a little bit like the alarm clock. You know, the body of the alarm clock is dead. The sort of 1 kilo old thing with 2 bells and a small little hammer going. The alarm does no longer live in it. The alarm lives here. So, you know, I always like to say, your alarm is here, because none of those 4 words really mean what they meant 50 years ago. And maybe this is the way mankind will happen as well. The spirit of the alarm will survive. It's even stronger and more better, but the body of the alarm will be dead.
But can we hope to understand artificial intelligence? What are our chances in what you're describing?
It's hard enough to understand intelligence as
artificial,
it is.
Yeah.
I think I was very interested in the Mindfire presentation, and heartened to see that they had ethics guys, and they also had some philosophy.
Yeah.
I've been in very advanced tech universities for the last decade thinking about AI, and what is truly shocking is, apart from maybe Harvard, Berkman Center, there's very limited thinking by the AI experts themselves on very large questions, like, I mean, storytelling and human beings. You know, this is not going to go away, you know. AI will become a power play, and it'll become structural in that sense. So can we understand it? I think probably our initial best guess is going to come from biologists who have been studying insect species, because particularly ants and other eusocial species, maybe bees as well, I would like to see those experts move into the AI space, because what we have with AI at the moment is a lot of very quite simple, narrow intelligences, and that kind of resembles an ant colony. But as we all know, when you get a colony of collective, simple intelligence, you have a sort of meta-intelligence, which emerges from that. And I think that a lot of research done in that field probably could be quite profitable.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we can understand it fully. Of course, there is this joke that we use mathematics to advance further in science. It's been the most useful language, but maybe when we meet with a more advanced civilization, let's imagine aliens, they could say, yeah, mathematics, yeah, we tried that. That only gets you so far. And then you need to, and we know this happened in mathematics quite often. The quantum mathematics that we use is completely stupid in a Newtonian term. And already today there's been this famous experiment about artificial intelligence being better than human beings at sort of seeing which person is gay or not. Sorry, but that's the way the experiment was. So an average human being can spot 60% probability whether that person is homosexual or not. Artificial intelligence managed to do 92. But the reason why I'm telling you this, the second critically obvious question is, okay, so how could you tell that that person is homosexual? And we don't know. She or it, the artificial intelligence, sees it better than we, but we don't know why. We can't crack the code. It's not written anywhere as in, you know, he's got bluer cheeks or something.
And now we're in this sort of beta phase of the technology. I think when the lawyers move into AI and any kind of autonomy, and I'd be very interested from our colleague from Cortica on this question, that lawyers and legal constructs have to pick apart the black box of AI. And if you give that autonomy, you actually legally have to understand how it works. And this is going to be a major drag on autonomous systems outside the military context in the next 5 years. And so a lot of work will happen in that space.
Well, it leads me to a question. I don't want to get into too deep, but what then is the relationship maybe between artificial intelligence or us understanding its consciousness? Can we understand it in the future as a consciousness, or is it something else if you're talking in the context of understanding it, yeah?
Well, consciousness is one of the most difficult things to understand, both in philosophy and in psychology and pretty much everywhere. We don't even know whether human beings are conscious. Some people that I talk with, I feel, have a very limited way of consciousness. But plants have consciousness, animals have consciousness, but human beings have a different level of consciousness from animals. This new artificial intelligence will probably develop even definitely different, whether higher or lower, we don't know. But for example, I mean, just to the question of understanding, we, mankind, we don't understand each other till the year 2018. We don't have a single ethical rule that sort of is actually firm. We have very fuzzy ethical rules, and all the ethical rules, if you actually take them verbatim and you sort of make them firm, you get to ridiculous paradoxes. And the history of religion is exactly Jesus or somebody coming out and saying, look at your stupid rules. Your stupid rules don't really work if you take them to the point of extreme. And that's why also there was so much speak about love and forgiveness and mercy. These are the key messages in the New Testament, exactly because you can't put them into a logical formula. They are fuzzy. Our ethics is also fuzzy. So now it will also be a huge time for mankind, whether we come up with strong AI or not. We have to sort out our acts. So you're going to drive an old lady, or are you going to drive 20 kids going to school? If you have a choice, which one will it be? Till the year 2018, we don't know. And we have about, what now, 6 years? 7 years? To figure out, as mankind, that we should drive over the old lady. But what will people in India? Perhaps they value age more than they value youth, very unlike us. So it's going to be a very complicated algorithm. And of course, I think the joke will be that Douglas Adams, and I suppose you're all nerds, so you all know Douglas Adams, the answer will be 42. And it's going to be a good answer, only we won't know why. So all these books, starting with Čapek, all the way to Black Mirror, that we thought are just for entertainment, suddenly seem to be study material, sort of a document about the future.
Yeah, just on the consciousness, I mean, I think Schrödinger, the quantum physicist, it was very interesting on this question. It's really worth rereading some of his work. He talked about the fact that matter and energy and kind of life itself had a granularity, but that consciousness, the mind, had no granularity. So it was a kind of flow. And I think all of us who are living in this internet age, especially my generation, we're really under this tremendous tension of letting go of the granularity and just sort of getting in the flow. And I think I'm not quite sure where that will go, but I think something about flow and indivisibility is probably going to be a significant element in our next decade of AI.
Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you very much for your time, for coming here. Thank you for the answers. I know there wasn't easy questions. I hope it's going to turn out well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.